Yeah, totally. So my name's Yashika Tripathi. I'm currently a third year graduate entry medical student in Scotland. Before this, I did biomedical sciences as my undergraduate degree. So that was down in England. And then obviously before that, I did A levels and whatnot. So my story, pretty sure it's very similar to every other story there is. Didn't get the A level grades required for undergraduate medicine. And to be honest, I didn't even apply. I didn't even apply during A level because I just knew I wasn't gonna get in. So I just focused on what I could during my A levels, and then I applied to BSc Biomedical Sciences. And from that, I took a gap year, worked as a healthcare assistant, which has actually been very, very useful for me in terms of not only experience but just funding for a graduate medical course. And now I'm here. So
Yeah,
very, very in a nutshell, that's essentially what my journey was.
perfect. And I guess you're the first person that we've spoken to who's actually studied medicine in Scotland. So I
Ah,
guess my question would be first, why medicine? And then second to that, why Scotland?
gosh, I feel I'm back in interviews. Why do you want to study in Scotland? So why medicine? Oh gosh, I think it probably came a lot from doing my undergraduate degree and doing biomedical science. I really enjoyed my undergraduate years actually, but I realized I sort of want to do a patient-facing role. And more so because the research element of biomedical sciences was interesting, it was good, but I realized I felt my skills were a lot more suited in, for example, a hospital setting or a GP setting where I could, carry out patient care, get involved in their management, and work with the multidisciplinary team, I suppose. So I suppose that's sort of like why medicine. And then why Scotland, wasn't it? I think so. At that time, I had received two offers. One was undergraduate medicine at Anglia Ruskin, and then my this offer in Scotland was graduate medicine. So for me, it was quite clear. I just wanted to do graduate medicine for the sake of obviously this funding on a graduate course, and also it's 4 years, so it's a bit shorter. I did actually also apply to the Irish universities, and I think I got through to was it Limerick. But obviously, for me, it was nice to stay in the same country so I could visit my family and friends more often. And Scotland in itself, it's great, honestly. Like, I feel very privileged to be studying here and sort of, I don't know if you, I'm going to shout myself out, but if you go through my Instagram and stuff, you see all the sort of hikes and the trips I go on. It's honestly amazing. Some beautiful, beautiful scenes up here. So I hope that's answered your question.
No, yeah, and having family originally from Scotland, it's a totally different dynamic from studying in Manchester or studying in London, Liverpool. But
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
as you said, there's still so many opportunities up there, and I
Oh
think
gosh,
it's just
yeah,
worth exploring.
definitely, definitely. Because I did so with my undergraduates, I did it at St. George's, so that was all based in London. So it's quite a contrast coming
Yeah,
from a London-based university to Scotland, where it's fresh air. But yeah, no, it's been great.
yeah, for sure. So I guess did you just sit the UCAT or did you also sit the GAMSAT?
So I
With you?
did both. So for the course I'm on at the moment, I initially was only planning to do the GAMSAT, which I did actually do a couple of times, and then about 2 weeks before the UK, well, when I did it, it was called UK CAT. So yeah, I booked myself in 2 weeks before the deadline, which I believe is it still 3rd of October, like the cutoff for when you can sit
Yeah,
your. It's
it's
around
something
that
like that.
time, isn't it? So at the last moment, which was so silly of me, like I wouldn't recommend anyone doing this, but I booked myself, giving myself only 2 weeks to study for the exam. And it was so stressful, and it's probably like one of the most ridiculous things I did. But for the course that I'm on, they don't really look at the UCAT, the whole UCAT. They only look at the SJT section.
Mm.
So yeah, they look at the SJT section, and then they look at your GAMSAT score. which obviously they have their own cutoffs. So yeah, I did both of them in the end. But yeah, that was, oh gosh. Anyone saying the GAMSAT, honestly, best of luck to you guys. Like I don't think I know anyone coming out of that exam, no matter how well they did or whatever score that they were happy with it. Like at the end of the day, it's just, you just want to go to bed.
So
yeah.
I guess this is the big contrast with the UCAT. It's a sprint and the GAMSAT's a marathon. So
Yeah.
I guess what's your opinion on both of them? And obviously, I guess how did you prepare differently? How did you find them, etc.?
So for the GAMSAT, I think so. I actually did end up taking a course. Can't remember the course on top of my head now. But yeah, I ended up taking a course, and they essentially provided a couple of books that were relevant to the GAMSAT materials, like common questions. That I think one thing I would say is that just practice questions, like they were really useful to have. With the GAMSAT itself, I remember when I did it the first time, I made this mistake, and I feel like it's quite a common mistake where you get bogged down in the knowledge and the foundations of the course rather than doing the actual practice questions. So I spent a lot of time like trying to revise chemistry and physics and biology, and actually all you really needed to, you need some knowledge obviously, but what you probably will most benefit from is doing the questions. So for the GAMSAT, I just made sure I was trying to, the second time around, or what, I can't remember how many times but yeah, however many times, I made sure I did as many questions as possible, which was really useful because you start identifying sort of common patterns that come up. And then with the UCAT, as I said, I only spent like 2 weeks doing it. So I used sort of the same approach in the sense with just making sure I did as many practice questions. For UCAT, I used their own question bank from the official website. I used Medify, and then Medic Portal, I think. Yeah, so those three, and I thought they were quite useful with preparation. But in terms of differences, obviously, as you said, GAMSAT is like a marathon. You do have to pace yourself. It's a 6-hour exam, and it's the longest exam I've ever sat, and it is so tiring. It's so stressful. Whereas the UCAT, it goes by so quickly. It's actually crazy because you think about, like, you feel like you're just starting, and then at the end of it you finish and you're like, wow, that was quick. But yeah, I think each of them, I think the common approach for each of them is practice, get on your hands on as many practice questions, and there's a lot of free stuff online as well. But you do have to pace yourself with the GAMSAT and make sure you're doing all sort of the essays as well. I neglected section 1 and section 2 my first time around. I don't know why. It was the most silliest thing I could have done, but I just thought, yeah, science is, a lot more important stuff, but it's not. They make sure you spend your time equally between the sections.
Yeah, sure. And I guess that's a really good point in that there is a lot of free material. And yeah, I think this is one thing I'm trying to get across is that yes,
sorry,
you can,
my life just let's put that up.
Yes, you can go and study, on these courses, but at the end of the day, you can go and pay like hundreds of pounds for, is it the gold standard books for the GAMSAT, but at the end of the day, how much worth are you getting out of that? And I think it's trying to justify. You can get Medify for, what is it, £40 for 3 months, and is that going to be enough? Most likely, but then do you need to go on these courses? I'm just trying to get across, is a benefit there, with these
I honestly think, with these, you have to bear in mind, this is going to sound really controversial, but I feel like some of these courses, they sort of prey on your vulnerability at that time. Like, I don't know, I'm probably going to get done for this, but just use your common sense. And like a lot of these courses, the materials they provide, it is sort of out there on the internet. You might have to put a little bit of effort in and do a bit of scouring online, but you will find the materials there. And that's not to say the course I did was beneficial to me because it provided some structure, provided some sort of foundation to build upon. But at the same time, as you said, like a lot of these courses, you have to realize, okay, what benefit are you getting from them? Because it's so easy to chuck so much money at this and not really getting what you wanted. So do your research, see what's beneficial to you, because obviously each person has their own needs and requirements. But don't fall into the trap of thinking, right, I need to do a course, I need to have a paid subscription, and that's the only way to pass these exams. Like, that's not true.
For sure, that's a very good answer. So I guess moving on to your interview stage of your application, then how many interviews? You said you had 2 offers. But
Yes, so I got 2 offers and then I got 2 interviews. So basically, my story is a bit strange because I applied. So I applied during my 3rd year of my undergraduate degree, and I didn't get any of my offers then. So that's why then I took a gap year. So then I reapplied during my gap year, and I actually didn't get any of my offers during that cycle. So I got 4 rejections from my second time round. But I was quite lucky as the courses I applied to opened up mid-cycle. So I was actually able to apply again in the same cycle, despite getting rejections from my 4 previous universities. So I applied to, as I said, Anglia Ruskin and then the University of, in Scotland. And I got interview offers for both of them as well. Yeah.
okay, so does that mean then that they take on 2 cohorts, one in the middle of the academic year and one at the start, or just a bit?
Yes, so I think I think because the logistics of it was a bit. So I think so they did the first round applicants for the course in Scotland because they'd actually opened up at the start of that is 2018 cycle. They'd already done one lot already, but what the government decided to do at that time was fund more places for the course. So there's now 55 places, and I think they opened up additional 15 places, so it's 55 altogether. And then they've just sort of put it out online saying that if you haven't already interviewed and you haven't applied for this course, you can apply mid-cycle. So that's what I ended up doing. I was a second round applicant. So yeah, they had people from their first batches of interviews that they'd taken on, and then they were looking to recruit 15 extra additional candidates from the second round of interviews, which is the one I went on. And then the Anglia Ruskin one, they just opened up their course and they didn't have any like previous interview stages or anything. It was just fresh.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds like that's very much a one-time
Yeah,
thing
it was
that
very
you got on.
lucky. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
I mean,
lucky. Yeah.
so I guess were both of them MMIs
Yes,
at the
both of
time? Yeah.
them. Yes, yeah.
Oh, how did you find the MMI style of interviews? Obviously, it's very alienated. You don't get anything like that normally. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess how did you find it? How did you find the role play aspect,
Yeah,
etc.?
gosh. I didn't have any panel interviews, so I can't quite compare it to those kinds. But for the MMI, I think it's fair to say I was so nervous. So my first one was actually Anglia Ruskin, and I just remember we were told to. They were quite. Both of the interviews were very friendly and welcoming, but I just remember standing outside of each station. You have your own. So yeah, you stand outside the station, and then you rotate around after you finish sort of each section. But yeah, I remember just standing there and then the buzzer goes off and my heart was just like going pitter patter. But yeah, it was really nerve wracking. So the role play element, I didn't mind the role play. Actually, I think the role plays were better than the stations that asked you to explain some things. So the role plays usually just involved where you're just it will say something like you're a medical student and you have to give advice to someone about certain things, and so then you just have to talk to someone. Whereas I think there are a couple of ones where you have to explain certain things to someone or describe certain objects, and that's obviously testing communication skills. And I found those ones to be a lot more trickier than role play ones, but overall the interviews I found really they were quite nerve-wracking. I remember actually the one in Scotland, I messed up one of my. This is, by the way, this is for anyone who's got interviews. Like, honestly, don't worry if you mess up, it's actually completely fine. I messed up on one of the stations where I misread the prompt, and it was again, I think it was advising someone of something, and I thought I was talking to like the parent or something, but actually I was talking to the child. But anyway, there was some miscommunication and I just completely misread the prompt, and the examiner stopped me halfway through saying, "You've misread the prompt, can you please start again?" And at that point I was like, oh my god, this is it. I've lost out my offer. Like, but ironically, I think that relaxed me, because I thought, you know what, that the worst thing that could have happened has happened, and I just went on with the rest of the interview. But yeah, it's okay if you mess up, like, it's totally fine.
Yeah, I guess. Well, that's the beauty of MMIs, is that you have these 14 stations where you can have a fresh start every 3 to 5 minutes, and if you totally batch the last one, you can get a perfect score on the next one, and it's having these fresh starts. And I think it's how you are as a person. Are you able to build that fast rapport with the interviewer? So some people prefer panel interviews where you're able to have that long conversation and get to know people more. But I guess it's how it suits you more, and I guess play to your strengths in that respect.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right.
So I guess going back to the role play aspect of the MMIs, did you prepare for any, I guess, questions? Obviously, with role plays, you can sort of, I guess we say, prepare in advance for how to break bad news. If you know the certain steps, how to break bad news, and you can almost do it in.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I think it cut out there. So are you just talking about the role plays and so preparing for breaking bad news and essentially, So for the role plays, in very generally, I literally just looked up common interview questions, common role play questions for that particular interview or that university, and then I literally just put the prompt up on my screen, and then I recorded myself. Like it sounds really cringe, but like you can learn a lot from yourself just by hearing the playback and seeing how you sound. And then obviously it really helps if you've got friends and family members that you can just sit down with, and if you sort of explain to them maybe what the interviews are looking for, then they can have an idea of how you should be performing in that interview. So definitely get your friends, definitely get your family, and obviously if there's someone who's already done the interview, so that could be like a current medical student or your senior doctors like F1s and F2s, something, they're really happy to help you out, or even university professors and stuff. They can, they have some experience with this area. So yeah, that's how I prepared for role play. And then breaking bad news, I because obviously we're taught how to break bad news in medical school now, so there's a certain framework that you can work through, but from a very sort of interview level. So if I was did you want a breakdown of exactly what you wanted, how you would break bad news, or sort of how I prepared?
It's just how did you prepare? How did you obviously approach that question at the time? And is there anything now you would have done differently, I guess, with the role plays?
So the Breaking Bad, I don't think I actually got any Breaking Bad news questions for my interviews, which was quite surprising because I thought I would definitely get that. But I did prepare for it, and I think there's like really common examples that come up, and it was things like a lady's brought in her, you're a laundry service, and a lady's come to collect her clothing garments, and you've messed up her clothing garment. For example, like you've ripped her dress, or you've accidentally stained her dress, and you're now facing this customer. How do you go about that situation? So I obviously the way I practiced, I used a framework in my head, so I ensured that the customer knew exactly what was happening. Oh, sorry, I think you can hear the Hoover in the background. I'm so sorry. Welcome to student living. So I prepared with essentially making sure that I accepted my mistake and being very honest about what was happening. There was no waffle or anything, just making sure you're very upfront with whoever it is that you're explaining to. And then the one real top tip I would give in breaking bad news at an interview is to offer a solution. And that solution doesn't necessarily have to be actually anything physical. It could literally be, it could be from something simple as like, I'm here for the next half an hour if you want to have a chat. If it's something that's really detrimental to whoever you're talking to, or if it's, for example, the laundry service, you can say something like, we can give you a coupon for your next dry cleaning, we can offer you a discount. Or if it's, for example, another common interview question with breaking bad news is you've double booked a customer's reservation. So you can say things like, I'm really sorry to hear, I'm really sorry I've made the mistake of double booking your reservation, ma'am, but we've got the VIP lounge bar with complimentary drinks, or something like that. So I think you just have to sort of like nip it in the bud and just, accept your mistake, offer a solution. So then it sort of gives the actor or whoever it is somewhere to go down the path. Otherwise, they would probably just get really frustrated, and you don't want that to happen. Because there's moments where when I was in one of my interview station. Actually, you know what? I think I did. I think there was an element of breaking bad news, but it wasn't as like I was breaking. But when I was in one of my interview, I could hear someone screaming and shouting, and like an actor, that's another candidate. So I think there was that element. I can't quite remember what it was, but yeah, you even if they do scream and shout at you, obviously that's part of it, and don't get stressed. It's what they're asked to do. But I know of people who've like come out crying and stuff after that, because it can be very, very emotional. It can be really intense. But yeah, that's sort of my top tips for breaking bad news. If it's useful, I hope.
No, that was amazing, and I think you've touched on some really good points in that. Especially these actors, just freelance. They've been hired for the day.
Yeah.
They're not gonna care if you get into the medical school. They're just gonna react to their sole job is to react to what you said in a logical manner.
Exactly.
So if you give them a good response in that, we can provide you a resolution, etc. They're not gonna just snap back at you.
No.
They just want to follow in a logical scenario.
I mean, they might very well truly snap back saying, "Oh, do you think it's my situation can be so replaceable?" Like, they could. But the point is that you've demonstrated that you're able to think of something in a logical manner, and you've presented, and the onus is on them at that point, because then the examiner can see actually you have done what you needed to do, and after that it's just a lot of empathy, a lot of active listening, a lot of like, I'm sorry to hear this. Da, 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 da. So yeah, that would be my sort of tips on that.
For sure, that's really helpful. Is there so? I guess looking back now, is there anything you wish you would have known before you began your degree? I guess
Before I began medicine, I think textbooks are a big one. I brought like I didn't brought quite a few, but I brought a couple, and I don't think that's necessary at all. You don't need textbooks unless the course specifically states it, and most of the textbooks you can get from the university library, and download like they've got like the free PDFs and stuff online. So textbooks, this is a big one. What else that I wish I'd known? I think just relax and enjoy the whole course and stuff, because sometimes, once you get into medicine, you think, right, I need to get through this. I need to make sure I've got a lot of preparation for foundation. This, like life will go by, and like, you'll always be preparing for exams. You get into med school, you've got med school exams, then you've got sort of, I don't know, your MRCP or whatever other specialty training exam. Like medicine is lifelong learning, so you'll always have components of examinations all the time. So yeah, maybe just relax, enjoy. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I was really scared to ask questions, especially I don't know why. I thought on a graduate course everyone just seemed super smart, so I was always the one, like, I didn't really participate, and I was like, oh gosh, if I say this I'll look really silly or stupid. But that's not the case. Most of the time everyone's on the same boat as you, and if you do ask questions that people know, like, it'll probably help them because it'll reinforce their knowledge as well. So yeah, ask all the questions. There's no silly questions. What else is there that I wish I'd known? I didn't. This is so silly, but I didn't have any placement clothes. That's so stupid, isn't it? So yeah, make sure you have appropriate clinical attire when you go into your placements and stuff. Like, that's probably only going to be applicable to me. So yeah, I think those top 3 tips. Yeah.
Perfect, and it brings us nicely onto the question of: are there any particular myths or misconceptions that you thought were stigmatized within med school before you got there?
Oh gosh, yeah. I honestly used to think, I don't know, I thought as a medical student you have to work all the time, 24/7. Like, there's no space to relax. There's no time to do things that you're wanting to be doing. But that's so not true. Like, I take myself as an example. Like, honestly, I used to think, that medical students like had this, perhaps that, they had their life sorted, they have a lot of things organized, and they know exactly what they're doing. And that's not true. And that's perfectly okay as well. If you don't know, like, if you know, that's great. But if you don't know, that's also fine. Like, I myself, I'm still trying to find that work-life balance. I'm still trying to figure out what specialty I want to go to. I'm still trying to figure out how to revise and study. I know I've literally been in education for 5-6 years now, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do exams and exam technique and OSCE practice and stuff. So it's perfectly fine to not have it all together, and I think that's an advice that I'd like to tell anyone, prospective medical students, current medical students. Like, it's completely okay just to go with the flow and figure it out as you go along.
Yeah, for sure. And coming from a biomed background, how do you feel the competitiveness of, obviously, you probably well understand on your biomed degree, everybody was hitting those 70s and above. Everybody was aiming for that. And I guess that's part and parcel of being in your first degree and you having to get that first class. How do you feel that's translated onto your medical degree now? Has it almost dulled down, or?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like, I mean, I'd like to think I am competitive, but not to the point where it's to my own detriment. So even during my biomed degree, I wasn't. I'll be very honest. I got a 2-1. It was pretty average. Even like if I got first in a couple of modules. But most if not all my modules were 2-1. So I knew for myself I wasn't like an extra highly scoring candidate or someone who was like, top of the class or whatever it is. And I think that goes to show you don't have to be in order to get into medicine. And you can be completely, as long as you achieve their requirements, I think that's fine. And I know some universities are accepting 2-2s as well, which is great. Like, because I honestly feel like medicine as a whole, as a profession, like, you don't need to be a smart cookie. Like, you need to have some basic knowledge and stuff, but as long as you're willing to put the work in, I think you're fine. And in terms of competitiveness during the medical course, I think so. Yeah, some people are. I won't lie to you and say, yeah, it can. Some of your peers can be quite competitive, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because then it sort of it means that you want to be working a little bit more. It pushes you, encourages you, motivates you to do a bit more. But as I said, you don't want to be competitive to your own detriment. You obviously want to take some time off, relax. The competitiveness usually comes from, I think, wanting to get your foundation year places. So when you rank, so after you graduate, before you graduate, you have to rank sort of what regions and deaneries that you want to get to. And some places are naturally a bit more competitive than others. So for example, London is like super competitive. So that's why you might see some of the people on the course doing a lot more just so they can secure those regions. But that's not a reflection of how you're doing on the course. Like, as long as you're content with your own goals and you're content with, okay, you know what, I want to get to this particular place, and that means I have to be achieving this particular mark. As long as you're happy with that, you don't need to compare yourself to anyone, which I think is very common. Like, you can fall into the trap of comparing yourself to other people very easily, but you shouldn't. Like, it's good. It's sort of a double-edged sword, isn't it? You can use it to encourage and motivate you, but at the same time, don't let it bring you down.
Yeah, sure. And just to, I guess, extend on that question, how have you found the almost course material coming from a biomed degree where it was more depth than breadth? Obviously, medicine, you have to cover almost everything healthcare related. So I guess how have you adapted to that, and how have you found the course so far?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was tough. It was so difficult. Like, this is gonna be like the most demotivational interview ever, isn't it? But I'll be honest and say I did find it a little bit tricky, because, as you said, I was only actually discussing this with my flatmate the other day. With biomed, when you do exams, it's a lot of it is like repetition, memorizing your essays, like memorizing certain pathways, and making sure you know exactly what's happening at an like intracellular level. With medicine, a lot of it is just like covering as much, like the spectrum, like covering as much as you can. You don't have to go as deep into one particular topic, but I find that can be a bit tricky, because sometimes I want to like sit down and learn a particular topic and think, right, this is the pathophysiology and this is exactly how it works. But for actual exam purposes, especially when you get into clinical years, you don't need to know that much. In preclinical, actually, you probably do need to understand it. But as you progress through the years, a lot of it is clinical orientated, and it does get a bit tough, because you do have to make sure you're encompassing the whole breadth of the course. So I found that quite tricky, and it was something that I did take time getting used to. I probably still am getting used to, and I think I just have to remind myself that actually, as long as I'm hitting, as I said, the required marks and the minimum of what the course is requiring, I should be fine. And what really helps me is sort of structuring my revision, doing lots of practice questions, because practice question helps you guide like what area or what topics you should be focusing on and exactly how much depth you should go into. So it is a bit of a struggle, but I felt like obviously if you just have the right resources and talking to your the peers on your course really helps as well.
For sure. So I guess moving on, just what keeps you motivated in such an intense course like medicine?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Do you know what? I actually have quite a good story with this one, because so during my second year exam, I didn't pass my second year exam, so I failed what are my the finals of my second year, and this was during COVID. And for me personally, I really benefit from face-to-face teaching or revising in a group, or just talking through topics. That's my style of learning that I've realized very, very quickly early on. So with COVID, just being quite isolated and learning online, we literally had to learn how to resuscitate someone over Teams. Like, honestly, it was a bit mad. But yeah, so I didn't pass, and I think I obviously knew why, because I didn't, the way I revised and stuff, it wasn't quite beneficial to me at all. So what motivated me at that time was actually one of my personal tutors. She reached out to me and she said, like, with what you're doing is the exams you're sitting, obviously you want to pass them, but overall you're doing this degree and you're learning things you up for your patients. And I thought that's actually quite a nice way to look at things, and that really struck a chord within me, because I thought that's a nice way to look at your essentially you're learning these things, you're doing these exams, and you're paying 9.25k a year, but you're learning all these things just so your patient is safe at the end of the day, and you can provide optimal treatment and give them safe management plans. And I think that's quite a nice way to put it. So for me, I remind myself, right, I'm doing this for my patients, I'm doing it so at the end of the day, if something does happen, I can equip myself with enough knowledge and tools, so at least I can somewhat make someone's life a little bit easier. So I think that's sort of my thought process. But that's not to say, some days, I'll be very honest and say, some days can be demotivating, and that's fine. Like, you need your days off, you need some downtime, you need to go out and about, go on some hikes, do Ben Nevis. Go climb the highest mountain in the UK, just do it. Yeah.
No, yeah, and that brings us nicely on to just what was such a long and strenuous course. How do you find time to plan for self-rest and, I guess, care?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I think you can lose track of sort of your, as you said, self-care and downtime very easily, because if you, like, I definitely fall into this trap where I think if I'm not doing anything, I start feeling guilty, and I start thinking, oh God, I need to do my quality improvement project, or I should be revising for exams. And that's such an easy mindset to get into. So what I like to do, I love planning, I love lists. I think maybe that's probably very common across all medical students. I love a good list. So I like using the Notion. I'm not sure if you heard of that app. Yeah, I love Notion. Honestly, it's like the best thing ever. Like, I love planning. I love putting all my to-do lists up. So in my to-do list, I actually literally write a downtime or PS4 or Netflix or something like that. So it's actually scheduled in, because if I don't schedule it in, I won't do it. And then I feel like, of course, I'm achieving something for my to-do list, but I'm actually doing it for myself as well. So the one thing that really helps me is actually scheduling in my downtime, because if I don't schedule it in, it won't happen. So I think that's one way for me I do it. And obviously there's just some days where you have to, like, listen to yourself, listen to your body, and think, you know what, if I'm not motivated enough to do this, then there's no point. Especially trying to do questions when you're so groggy and tired, and it's that you go on past minute and you're just achieving like 20% consistently. I'm like, right, time to log off.
I got to touch on Notion and Anki. Even with undergraduate, it's just
So
it's
good.
been a dream. It's almost
So
been a
good.
dream when you just realize how did you live without Notion once you
I
started
know.
using it? Like,
I know, literally. Like I remember going through sixth form, and like so during my undergrad degree, I used to handwrite all my notes. I used to have a physical planner, which to be honest, some people do prefer having still a physical planner. But I honestly, ever since I got Notion, I used to use OneNote before this actually, and then I moved on to Notion because Notion just seemed a lot more smoother. Like the interface just seemed a lot more nicer to use. So yeah, honestly, it's been a lifesaver. I love Notion. So like all my
yeah,
medical notes, like my whole life is on there. So if Notion like crashes one day, I don't know what I'm gonna do myself.
I think it can suck you in so much because you can just add and just keep adding
Keep
onto it, and
going.
it's
Oh my God, I
it
know.
almost engulfs your life, and you look back now and 3-4 years ago, I'm like, how did I have a structure?
I
It's like,
know, I know.
what? A pen and paper, like,
It's
no.
crazy, isn't it? It's
So
so much more quicker. It's so much quicker when you do it all electronically, isn't it?
yeah, for sure. So I guess, what does a week look like at med school now? Then obviously COVID has probably totally
Yeah.
changed that, but yeah.
Yeah. So actually, my course is quite different. So I'm with my third year. We're part of this LIC program, longitudinal integrated clerkship. So that essentially means you are in a GP practice for the whole of third year, and you'll sort of spend 2.5 days a week in a GP practice, and you have a dedicated GP mentor, GP tutor that you work quite closely with and spend a lot of time with. And then the rest of the 2.5 days, you can choose your own secondary care placements that you can do, as well as doing sort of QI projects. We also have group tutorials once a week outside of those GP days. And then we have a bunch of items on our portfolios. So this will include mini cases, case-based discussions, and essentially this is where you're interacting with the patient and your GP tutor supervisor just sees how you're getting along. They're like mini assessments essentially. So yeah, it can be a very, very busy week, with the likes of being in the GP practice for half of it and the other half either in secondary care or volunteer. We actually have to volunteer as well this year. We've been volunteering actually for quite a while. We volunteered in first year as well in the community. So my volunteering involved befriending service. So I can just ring someone who's asked to sign up for this volunteering program, and I essentially check in on them every week, see how they're getting along. So yeah, it can be super packed, it can be super busy, but at the same time, you can have some weeks can have its downtime. So where you just do your 2.5 days at the beginning of the week, and then the rest of the time, if you haven't organized any secondary care placements or you haven't got any volunteering or any project, quality improvement project stuff, you can actually spend the rest of the week just self-directed study or whatever it is. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I guess, what's your vision going into the future then? Obviously, you're in your third year now, so
Yeah.
it's coming close.
It is coming close. It's honestly, I don't know if you've heard that meme. It's like my heart's going pitter patter. Honestly, that's me every time I think about the future. So interestingly, I was very GP orientated before the course, but I think now that I've been exposed to other specialties, I've actually more intrigued, and I've been pulled towards sort of hospital medicine and secondary care medicine, because I don't know, I'm starting to enjoy hospital medicine. So I'm hoping actually I can go into a specialty where I can I don't know. I'm thinking psychiatry. I think that's quite a really interesting field to me. I don't. This literally might change in the next like couple of months, but yeah, I find psychiatry quite interesting. And that being said, I actually had a psychiatry placement just yesterday, and it's honestly so interesting, so eye-opening, and it's good to hear like people's stories and stuff. So it's quite an intriguing specialty to me. So yeah, maybe psychiatry is something that I'm quite interested in. What else was there? Yeah, I'm hoping I can get my first choice with my dean reads and allocations. Sort of thinking to it now. Gosh, it's almost like you can see it's all coming back into it. I'm like, I've literally pushed this to the back of my mind, and it's all like coming forward. So yeah, I guess that would be it in a nutshell.
Yeah, for sure. So, for future medical students watching this video, are there any golden piece of advice you just give somebody for going through the application process to start?
believe in yourself, because I didn't do that. And I could and honestly, just believe in yourself, have faith in yourself. And even if it takes a while to get to whatever goals you've set yourself, that's okay, because it's not a race. I used to think like I need to get into medicine at this point of my life, or complete at this degree at this stage of my life. Honestly, it's not a race. If you really want to do medicine, you will do medicine, you will become a doctor. Just take some time for yourself, really like plan out exactly what you want to do, reflect, evaluate, re-reflect, like just make sure you're not losing sight of your goal, and believe that you can get there, because you totally will.
Sure. And finally, for somebody starting their first day out at St Andrews, what would be your, I guess, what would be your take-home tips for that student?
Oh, so specifically starting in St Andrews University.
I mean, just general.
General university, so if your first day of university, honestly, just get to know the cohort, get to know the people, get to know the surrounding areas, go visit the town, go visit the city centre, wherever it is, and just relax. You made it.
Yeah.
You made it, honestly. Like, let that sink in. Like, you don't need to hit the books the very first day. Like, you really don't. Like, you can visit the library like the next week. Like, literally, to just chill. Like, congratulate yourself, and get to know the area, get to know what your life might be for the next couple of years.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess that's a good point in for everybody watching this. Most likely they're just aspiring applicants at this time. All they see is this massive mountain that they need to climb over the next 2-3 years, and it's almost, these videos give an insight and what's on the other side, and hearing your story and everybody else's almost shows that they're not superhuman. They're not. There's no differentiation apart from they're hardworking, and that's what's made them make it. And we were having a good discussion a few days ago in that there's so many different types of, if you want to call them, medical students, and I think that goes back to the almost stigma. If a medical student needs to be super smart or needs to be this certain way. And I made the comparison of, say, you're not going to find Faye Bates and Ollie Burton in the same room, because they're totally different people.
Yeah, gosh, yeah. Totally.
They're linked in the hard work and dedication to their subject, and that what I guess makes them succeed in their own way. Both of them, really.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Like, honestly, coming back to sort of thinking, oh gosh, you have this massive mountain to climb. It's not, they're just little hills. Like, break it down for yourself. You don't have to make it into it. Break down each little thing that you need to do. And as you said, like, don't compare yourself to a standard medical student. There's such a thing doesn't exist, because if you think about it, your patient population is so varied, so obviously the doctors treating them will be varied as well. Like, could you imagine having one doctor treating 10 different patients? Like, do you know what I mean? Of different, like, you need to be varied, otherwise the system just wouldn't work. And it's so great when you see diversity in medicine. Like, honestly, that's like a really great compliment to our NHS. Like, diversity is what's a great sort of, I don't know, I just feel it contributes to the healthcare system, and you need that, because your patients are so varied as well. Like, if your patients are coming from different backgrounds and demographics, you want to be able to connect with them on different levels, and that's not going to come by building yourself to be a standard medical student. That doesn't even exist anyway. But yeah,
for sure. Again, a massive thank you for taking the time out of your day to come speak to me. Is there any way our viewers can get in contact with you if they've got any other questions?
Yeah, totally. I mean, shameless plug, but head over to my Instagram, Yashika_medical diary. Honestly, my DMs are always open. I try to respond to as many questions as I can. And yeah, I've literally got my whole experience, my journey into medical school, my experience at medical school on there. So if you guys have any more questions, honestly, please feel free to DM me on there. But yeah, I really hope, honestly, I hope whoever's watching this, I hope you have a little bit of learning and information from this, and you found it useful. And if you're applying to medicine, honestly, best of luck. You'll get through.
For sure. All right, thank you for that, Yashika. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.